The diner was silent, forks frozen midair, eyes wide with disbelief, as a man's venomous words echoed through the air. He spat right at her, laughing cruelly, but before anyone could even breathe, black SUVs screeched outside. 10 armed FBI agents stormed in, surrounding him. No one could have imagined who that quiet woman really was. Rain drizzled softly over a small-town diner on the edge of Virginia. Inside, the morning hum of conversation mixed with the hiss of frying bacon and the smell of freshly brewed coffee. At the corner booth sat Lena Moore, a soft-spoken woman in her early 30s, dressed simply, jeans, a gray sweater, and a worn leather bag by her side. She was polite, quiet, and often smiled at everyone, though she rarely said much. To most people in town, Lena was just that quiet woman who kept to herself. She'd moved there 6 months ago and worked remotely, rarely making small talk beyond a warm thank you. But not everyone saw her kindness. That morning, a group of local men sat at the counter, led by Rick Dalton, a known loudmouth with a chip on his shoulder. Rick was the kind of man who believed the town belonged to him, and that people who looked different didn't. When Lena entered the diner, Rick's sneer followed her. "Look who's back," he muttered to his friends. "Probably some immigrant living off our taxes." His buddies chuckled, feeding off his cruelty. Lena quietly ordered her coffee and sat down by the window, pretending not to hear. But Rick wasn't done. He walked over, his boots heavy against the tiled floor. "Hey, lady," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "You understand English, right?" The diner fell silent. Lena looked up slowly, calm but with pain flickering behind her eyes. "Yes," she said softly. "Perfectly." Rick laughed. "Good. Then maybe you'll understand this." He grabbed her coffee, threw it aside, and spat directly at her face. The crowd gasped. Someone shouted, "Rick, stop," but he didn't care. He smirked, proud, cruel, sure of his dominance. Lena wiped her face with a napkin, trembling slightly, but she didn't say a word. Instead, she reached into her bag, not for a weapon, not for revenge, but for her phone. She pressed a single button. Within seconds, the sound of engines roared outside. Black SUVs, unmarked, powerful, swarmed the parking lot. Men and women in suits rushed in, guns drawn, badges flashing. FBI. Hands where we can see them. Rick froze, disbelief twisting into terror. The entire diner stared, speechless. One of the agents, tall, composed, approached Lena and said respectfully, "Ma'am, are you okay?" Lena nodded faintly. "Yes, Agent Cole." "Thank you." Rick's jaw dropped. "Wait, what? You know them?" The agent turned to Rick. "You just assaulted Special Agent Lena Moore of the FBI's Civil Rights Division." The diner erupted into whispers. Rick's arrogance evaporated, replaced by panic. Rick was cuffed and led outside as the townspeople watched in stunned silence. The same woman he'd mocked was now surrounded by respect and authority, her badge glinting under the diner lights. But what shocked them most wasn't her position. It was the story behind her silence. Later that day, after the chaos settled, Lena sat with the diner owner, an elderly woman named Martha, who apologized through tears. "I'm so sorry, dear. We should have said something sooner. No one deserves that." Lena smiled faintly. "You don't need to apologize, Martha. I've seen worse." She hesitated, then continued. "I was raised by a single mom. She worked 3 jobs, and we faced a lot of hate for our skin color, our accent, our everything. I learned to stay quiet, to avoid trouble. But I also promised myself, when I was old enough, that I'd protect others who couldn't protect themselves." Martha's eyes softened. "That's why you joined the FBI." Lena nodded. "Civil rights. Hate crimes. I've spent my life tracking men like him. But today, I just wanted a cup of coffee." Outside, word spread quickly. The same people who'd looked away began questioning their silence. For the first time, they realized that racism wasn't just cruelty, it was cowardice, and silence only fed it. The next morning, a group of townsfolk gathered outside the diner. They held handwritten signs that read, "We stand with Lena. Hate has no home here." When Lena arrived, she was stunned. The people who once ignored her now stood shoulder to shoulder, not out of guilt, but because she'd shown them courage without shouting, strength without hate. Rick faced charges under federal law for assault and a hate crime. The town changed that day, not because of punishment, but because of awakening. As Lena left the diner, Martha called out, "Agent Moore, will we see you again?" Lena smiled warmly. "Maybe. But I hope you won't need me next time." She got into her car, drove off quietly, and for a moment, the whole town stood watching, silent, not out of fear, but out of respect. This story reminds us that real power doesn't always shout, sometimes, it speaks softly but changes everything. Kindness, dignity, and courage are stronger than hate. And silence, when chosen with purpose, can be louder than any insult.